Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Let's try something new. I get my fair share of emails here on YouTube, and often I'll talk about a fight, then I'll get emails after I've made the video, and it's impossible to respond to the emails. So let's try to take on some of the interesting emails that I think people might be interested in, and let's talk about fights. The first email is from UK Wing Chun student. He makes his own videos here on YouTube. I hope you give his videos a look. I know I enjoy them. I've watched several. And he writes, this is about Vladimir Klitschko. And he has written, can you explain the part where you say Vladimir doesn't lean on you or make his size an issue? He does this in virtually every fight, bro. He's known for grabbing and leaning. Please break that part down, right? Let me just say, with all due respect to UK Wing Chun student, I don't consider Vladimir Klitschko to be a guy who makes his size an issue. Now, I was sent the Sam Peter rematch of a fight in which Klitschko got dropped 3 times. Let me just say that bigger heavyweights, we're talking about heavyweights who weigh more than Klitschko, right? George Foreman, for example, I considered him to be a guy who made his size more of an issue because Foreman, rather than just stay outside behind a jab, would come in with an Archie Moore type defense, and Foreman would literally come and lean on an opponent and drive his legs into that opponent in such a way that the opponent would often be up on the ropes getting leaned on, right? There's a way to literally tire out an opponent and let the opponent understand that you're throwing your weight around. Now, take a look at that Sam Peter rematch video, which I was sent. Um, in that rematch, you're going to see Vladimir Klitschko is more of a grab and hold guy. That's clinching isn't what I'm talking about when I say make weight an issue and lean on a fighter. I would encourage everyone to compare and contrast George Foreman after his comeback with Vladimir Klitschko in fights. Klitschko, while he is a tall heavyweight, he's not a heavyweight who is that heavy, right? Compare his weight to Jameel McCline, for example. He's not that heavy, and he never really drives opponents into the ropes where he's leaning on the opponent. So I'll say, yeah, he hugged with Sam Peter. Of course, you have to clinch after you've been knocked down 3 times in the first fight. Obviously, he's not going to just be in the middle of the ring defenseless. But I'll be very surprised if he's able to lean on David Haye at all in their upcoming fight. He's just not that kind of guy. In my opinion, he doesn't have that skill set. If you disagree with me, leave your comments. Refer to fights, refer to rounds. I have no problem. But when I watch Vladimir Klitschko, I don't see a guy who, like George Foreman, is coming in and literally leaning on a guy, driving the guy back, having the guy up in the ropes, having the guy have to deal with him the entire fight. Let me also point out, too, Sam Peter, very slow foot speed. Um, you know, I think a guy like Foreman against a fighter with better foot speed could still find a way to lean on that fighter in a way in which Vladimir Klitschko does not. So I don't consider Vladimir Klitschko a leaner. I don't think he really makes his size an issue. The fighter I see is a guy shooting a jab, quite frankly, from distance. Then when you get inside, because he doesn't have an inside game, because he doesn't throw hooks from close range, he'll then grab you. That's not the same as leaning on you and tiring you out. Let me go to the next email. This is from the ARMAP Productions. right? And he says that Vladimir Klitschko admits he's nervous. He confesses to having flamingos, not just butterflies, in his stomach about facing David Haye, the boxer. Let me just say that I'm from the Bobby Fischer school, and I know the chess great had many things to him that were terrible. But it was Bobby Fischer who said that, he's not into psychology, he's into good moves, right? And let me just say, whatever these fighters are thinking about the other, I don't think it matters that much. What I will say, though, is that I think Vladimir Klitschko is going to have an awfully hard time if he's taken out of his plan A, if he's taken out of his comfort zone, if he can't land that jab on David Haye, then I do think he's going to fall apart because I don't consider him to be an adaptive, reactive fighter. So if that's what you're talking about, I'll agree with that. But what the fighters think about each other and all this other stuff, I don't think that matters as much as whether they can adapt in the ring, what they're going to do in the middle of the fight. Let me also say this too. I thought Vladimir Klitschko completely lost it at the end of the first Lehman Brewster fight, a fight in which he got stopped. I would encourage everyone to look at the last round of that fight and the aftermath. I think it's still an open question on what happened to Vladimir Klitschko at the end of that fight. Here's an email. I get these every now and then. This is from Fighter for Good, and the 4 is the number 4. And he says, evil, racist, a-hole. He says, you know, I mean, you just say what's on your mind, heart, and soul, and that's, I believe and wish and pray for Floyd to win, 'cause he's black, and so am I, and I always hated this Filipino, Manny Pacquiao. Let me just say, I know online somehow I have a reputation for being a Pacquiao hater, even though my last few Pacquiao predictions have all come true. Let me just say, I picked Pacquiao against Ricky Hatton. I picked Pacquiao against Joshua Clottey. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether that makes me pro-Filipino or anti-Filipino. Um, Floyd Mayweather is unbeaten. All I can say is, if you picked Floyd from the beginning of his career till now, you'd have had quite a nice run. I think race is a social construct. I think great fighters can come from anywhere. I'd be surprised if, in going over my videos, you haven't seen me pick a fighter of a different ethnicity or different race many, many, many times. So all I could say is, hey, your opinion is your opinion. Um, the next one is Hal Dan Gore, and he sent me a link to a video where to an article on Seconds Out, where Marvin Hagler, a Hall of Famer, dominant fighter, a fighter that Bernard Hopkins admits was his inspiration. Marvin Hagler talks about Floyd Mayweather and basically says that Floyd needs to stop making excuses. He needs to get into the ring. The idea of Floyd demanding that Manny Pacquiao take a drug test is simply ridiculous and shouldn't be taken seriously. Floyd needs to get in the ring. All I could say is this. Marvin Hagler fought Sugar Ray Leonard in the 1980s, right? That's before we fully understood the impact of juicing. That's before Roger Maris was wiped out of the books in baseball, and guys literally, multiple guys, beat Maris. Two guys actually hit more than 70 home runs in a season. That was before, Marion Jones juiced and then dominated in the Olympics. That was before we've had all these allegations of EPO in the Tour de France. That was before we had an Tour de France winner, Floyd Landis, actually stripped of the yellow jacket after winning a Tour de France. That was before several in boxing, including big names, have admitted to, juicing. You've had a future Hall of Famer admit to EPO use. I'm not going to out people. You had a guy win the heavyweight title only to get stripped because he failed a drug test. Oscar De La Hoya has had multiple opponents fail post-fight drug tests or admit to using drugs. All I could say is clearly juicing greatly enhances performance. I'm not accusing anyone of juicing. I don't have that information, but what I will say is if juicing can get you to 70 home runs and 73 home runs, and both of those guys admit to having taken drugs that or substances that enhance their performance, all I could say is in boxing, we should remove any artificial advantage that any performance enhancing substance gives a fighter. I don't see what the big deal is, especially when millions of dollars are involved, in insisting that both fighters submit to random blood tests. Let me also say, too, that urine tests don't catch things like EPO. If EPO really was a completely irrelevant substance, then why are athletes risking detection and disqualification in the Tour de France by using EPO? So I think we need random blood tests at least for big time championship fights. If a Sergio Martinez, a David Hay, a Floyd Mayweather insists on steroid tests, I'm all for it. I don't see what's wrong with a level playing field. Okay. Also, I have from Mac Tyson TV. I have a email that says where to bet. What's the best website to bet online? Let me just say, you need to check your local laws first because obviously in many countries you cannot bet legally online, right? Go to oddschecker.com for the best sites to bet on if you are in Europe. Go to oddsshark.com for a list of odds and sites for outside of Europe. But again, all I can do is say to you, you need to check your local laws to figure out where to bet. Also, a word of advice to gamblers in general, especially if you bet on team sports, not so much boxing. Go to vegasinsider.com. You'll actually see, free of cost, some line movements and what actual casinos like the Las Vegas Hilton are offering on actual team sport events. Okay, finally, King Black Caesar wrote me a email that says, "What's up, man? I was just wondering on your take on James Kirkland versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. or Canelo, and thanks again for subscribing and friending. Peace out." Well, let me just say this. James Kirkland's lack of defense is an ongoing problem. Anyone with a punch like Canelo has the opportunity to knock out James Kirkland, who was knocked out by Ishida, was knocked down 3 times in the first round, right? Certainly, Chavez Jr. has the opportunity, quite frankly, to and keep in mind, Chavez Jr. is 160. Kirkland was fighting at 154. Now he's just entered 160. Chavez Jr. would have the opportunity to try to land that great left hook of his. Let me just say this, though. Both of those fights, Kirkland against Canelo and Kirkland against Chavez Jr., are very dangerous for different reasons. The first is I'm not sure if Canelo has an inside game. I haven't really seen someone pressure him the way Southpaw James Kirkland would pressure him. Let me also say, too, that the way to beat a long-range jabber is with volume. James Kirkland has volume. James Kirkland knows how to pin you on the ropes. James Kirkland knows how to throw punches inside. Kirkland has an inside game. I think Kirkland would give Canelo all he could handle. Canelo clearly would be the dominant fighter from distance, but I'm not sure if from distance he has enough to keep Kirkland off of him. This fight might look like Ivan Calderon against Giovanni Segura or Yuri Foreman against Powell Wolak. I think that's a dangerous fight for Canelo. Also, I think Kirkland is dangerous for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who beat Sebastian Zubek inside, right? Can you imagine someone trying to beat James Kirkland inside? I'm not sure. That's a dangerous fight. Kirkland, with all his flaws, is a valid, credible contender. Thanks for watching.